So it's a real treat to have Gary in from Colorado and share some thoughts with us. Title of his talk is The Secular Secret. I guess he'll tell you what the secret is about, so I won't spill the beans. It's a secular secret, a rational response to possibility thinking. Let's give a warm welcome to our friend Gary Taylor.
Thank you. Yeah, this was actually kind of Mike's idea. We were talking about a book called The Secret. You're familiar with this? There's 20 million copies sold. And so I actually went into the bookstore to get this because I hadn't seen it for a long time. And I got Playboy magazine and 50 Shades of Grey to put on top of it so they wouldn't see me carrying this around. But it seemed like a good kind of good thing. If you're not familiar with the book, Rhonda Byrne, and the idea is that it talks about the law of attraction, and the idea that everything you need or want is out there in the universe, and the universe is there to give it to you. And as it says, ask, believe, receive. And just an example is the guy talking about parking spaces. He says he focuses on parking places, and he says 95% of the time, the parking place that he's looking for will be open when he gets there. And it's not just a parking place, it's the parking place, a specific parking place. And the other 5% of the time, if he waits a few minutes, somebody will leave. So, and there's a lot of that. There's a thing on weight loss in there that's truly scary in terms of concept. But there are some ideas in the secret that I like. And that's the visioning part. It's focusing on what you really want. And so when I put this talk together, the idea was to focus on Smythe and Taylor as an organization. We've been together for 15 years. And then the kind of last part of the talk, we'll be talking about Oasis. I'm an outsider here, so I don't know everything that goes on, but I get here occasionally. And so I thought I'd share a few thoughts in terms of kind of my observation and ask a few questions. So we'll move ahead. So in the beginning, when I retired from my job as a paleontologist, I decided to get into music more. I was 50 years old. I was a modest guitar player, a mediocre singer. I was interested in non-commercial music, folk music, and I had modest ambition. I didn't want to be the next Justin Bieber, even if you thought you could be, which you can't if you're 50 years old. And so I got together with the TC, the Rusty Old American Dream that we started with. We won a talent contest at our company, and that was the first time we actually sang together. But we look at Smythe and Taylor as kind of a company. We were young once. This is like 15 years ago, and but we kind of approach things as a company. Every company has a product or service. It needs a USP, a unique selling proposition. There's a lot of folk singers out there. What differentiates us? That's a question you have to ask. We felt you need a vision. We have a strategic plan. We meet yearly for a business plan and lay out what's coming in the next year. And we need resources in terms of friends and money and that sort of thing. So very much like when I was in corporate, in the corporate world. The unique selling proposition. Here's what we think we are musically. We focus on songwriting. We think we have good, strong songwriting. We have harmony, great harmony thanks to TC. People often ask in Houston, who is the best harmony group in all of Houston? And my answer is always, whoever TC is singing with that night. It's the best. And we think during the course of a two-set program, we'll make you laugh, we'll make you cry, and one that you'll understand every word. We keep the guitars in the background and make sure that's important to people. And you'll have fun because we have a lot of sort of humorous songs. In order to get to where we've been, we like to say we've paid our dues. We've sung in bars like this one. You'll notice the TV here. This TV was playing the sports, some football game or baseball game while we're singing. We used to play up to 15 times a month when I was in Houston. So we've kind of paid our dues in terms of learning the songs. And that's an important first part. This was the Greyhound, talk about paying your dues. We took a Greyhound to New Iberia, Louisiana, to get on the river barge over there. And like TC's on the cell phone going, 911, it's like, hey, those guys that you're looking for on the post office wall, I think they're all here. Bus. But, we love these experiences. One thing when we perform, we have some rules. One is we don't divide the room. We have political songs, we have religious songs, but we're pretty careful where we play them because we don't get involved too much with politics. One exception is we were pleased to open for Kinky Friedman 3 times when he was running for governor. His tagline was, "How hard could it be?" And Kinky Friedman was not known as politically correct. His musical act was Kinky Friedman and the Texas Jew Boys, and one of their biggest hits was "Get your biscuits in the oven and your buns in the bed." And
they don't make Jews like Jesus anymore.
But like I say, when we get into a room, we're pretty conservative about doing political songs if it doesn't seem to make sense. Sometimes it makes great sense, but we let the room dictate. We were playing in Midland, which is TC's hometown, as her song will tell, but much to her chagrin, the favorite son of Midland is George W. Bush, and his boyhood home is there. We were setting up for a show in Midland outside, and this guy came by and he had this dog. Oh, what a cute dog. What's your dog's name? He said, W. So that told us right there, okay, the political songs, they're going away. So we always seek the new and we seek to have fun. That's an important part for us. First time we went to Gilfest in Guilford, we go in and, it was like, okay, we're not in Kansas anymore. This was just as from our recent trip. This is Rongova, Poland. Our good friends Piotr, Chistov, and Wojtek and TC. Alcohol had been consumed at this point. and showing the theme of the trip, here's TC and Vivian at a pub in London. And if you think that's out of focus, no, that's exactly what they look like. This is TC at the Sukanica in Krakow on the square in Poland. These are the times we say, "Are we working yet?" It just doesn't feel like work. So we definitely have fun. The power of diversity. If you have a company with 2 people, how diverse can you be? Actually, but the fact is, we're different genders. That works to our advantage in that we can sing any kind of song. Pop song. If somebody wants to hear Blue Bayou, she can sing it. If they want to hear Bob Dylan, I can do that. And also with the 2 of us, we can meet with different people. Sometimes I'm better working with somebody. Sometimes TC. We have different behavioral styles. I'm very much an introvert. TC, not so much. So TC tends to do the sales and phone calls, the logistics. She's got certain skills. I like the planning. I choose most of the material. I set up the set lists, kind of the things you'd expect an introvert to do. It can work against you, these different styles. We've tried co-writing. Introvert, like myself, likes to process internally. I can write a song without picking up a guitar or singing a note. I can just hear it. TC, as an extrovert, likes to process by talking and playing, and that just sort of shuts me down. It's very hard to do, and it's because of those behavioral styles. The power of the plan. I'm a big fan of strategic planning. I did a lot of that in the corporate world. Over the last 18 months, I've worked with 5 different 501c3s, volunteering my time to help them put together a strategic plan. And so we use that a lot with our thing here. We have a strategic plan, and every year we do a business plan to supplement that, decide what we're going to do that year. It allows you to be realistic and ambitious at the same time, and hit the right things. Again, this was our double CD release party when we released our CDs together. We both put it individual. So this was about 15 years ago. This is on the stage of the Hops House, one of our favorite places. But as you can see, it's a modest stage. This is the stage that we played at in Rongova just a few weeks ago. It's probably seats 5,000. And so I would suggest that when we were on the stage at the, at this point, we had no idea what was coming or what could be. But I suggest this wouldn't have happened if we didn't have some kind of a plan. If we just kind of randomly track down gigs, that probably wouldn't have happened. So we keep our eye on things. So one question is, so how do you get to Europe? And our friends have asked us that. Well, there's a bit of a randomness to it. Although we have a plan, if we're always looking for a new state to play in or a new country to play in. And this is our good friend. This was Malcolm Johnson, our host in Britain. We met him at an Italian restaurant in Houston. It was a crowd full of indifferent people, and he was by himself, and he was the one guy listening. So we went over and talked to him, and he said he was from London, but he worked in The Hague, and he was over here on business. And he said, "Do you know any Lonnie Donegan?" And Lonnie Donegan was the skiffle king, and having a 3-record set of Lonnie Donegan could answer that question. So we took our guitar over and sang, "Does your chewing gum lose its flavor on the bedpost overnight?" And he was very impressed. And he said, have you ever played in Europe? And so that piqued our interest, and one thing led to another, and that's how we ended up there. There's a visioning piece. During one of the trips, we visited, we just walked by Ronnie Scott's Jazz Club in Soho in London. And it's a very famous club. Ella, Billy, Duke have all played there. Jimi Hendrix played his last concert there before he died. In 1969, The Who released Tommy to the world at this club. TC was working one time when I couldn't go to London with a friend named Will, and Will had an occasional gig at Ronnie Scott's. So one thing led to another, and just ironically, when we took this picture, we had no idea that we might play there, but in fact, we did a year ago. Rhonda Byrne would have a field day with that. She'd say that's the magic working there. But I think there's more to it than that. The law of networking and the law of reciprocity is huge, in my opinion. TC, as you know, books the Oasis. She books the farmers markets, so she gets jobs for a lot of musicians. I do the same thing in Colorado, and but through that, you come up with contacts and you talk to people. Ken Gaines in town does that great. He has a thing at Anderson Fair. He invites people in from different cities, and of course, when they're there, they say, "Hey, if you're ever in Beaumont, look me up and I'll fix you up a gig." And Ken has made a living on that approach. That's the law of reciprocity. Here's our friend Janusz, the best mandolin player in Poland. He lives in Warsaw. We invited him and paid his way and all his expenses to London one time. And a year ago, we invited him to Houston and Austin. And we took him to South by Southwest and paid his way. Of course, the law of reciprocity being what it was, he said, "Hey, can you come to Morongo this year?" He knows the people there, and he made it happen. We also go see our friends. This is 3 members of the 7-member group Powergrass. So we like to join people on stage during their programming and see them. Of course, it's not all friendliness. Here's TC pointing out our name on the poster and covering up Roseanne Cash's name, which I thought was rather rude. But the next day they met and made up. So here's TC. TC, we were watching this awesome trio. This is a Sacre Coeur in Montmartre in Paris, and TC's doing her water bottle like this. So the guy comes up and grabs her and hands her a real thing. So they're doing this 3-part harmony, and then TC breaks into her scat singing, and the crowd went crazy, as they say. So it was a highlight of the Paris trip. But the reality is, here's our friend Chadek, who's a well-known star in Poland. When we had our CDs for sale, he had a booth where he sells his CDs. He took our CDs, and his family, shown here, sold our CDs and pushed our CDs the whole weekend while we were there. And there are other people. There are a dozen people or so who make it work for Smythe and Taylor. Fred and Linda Thompson are one of the main ones. Rob and Judy Mood, our friends the Johnsons in London, Janusz out in Poland. If those folks didn't work, this wouldn't work at all. There's people that really care about you, and there's no way we can ever repay those people, what they've given us. As I mentioned, strategies. Any fee for a new country or state. If we have an opportunity and it costs us money to go to a new country or state, we'll do that just to branch out. We support other bands, as I say. CDs are important for our growth, and we've entered about 5 contests, and actually we've won 3 of them. So that's a pretty good record. We don't really like contests, and we're not doing it anymore. But it has helped us. Here's our selection of our CDs. And here's me at the Woody Guthrie. The last song I sang, "Hit the Road Again," as was mentioned, was the winner of the Woody Guthrie Songwriting Award. And I got an email. They said, "Hey, congratulations, you won. Can you be in Okima in 2 weeks to open the Woody Guthrie Folk Festival?" And we said, "Yeah, we can do that." So that was a good thing. One thing we like to think of is we like to go beyond. When we get into a situation, what else can we bring to the table? We had the occasion to play on the river barge, which traveled the intercoastal waterway. We usually went from Galveston to Corpus. We were on there 3 days. We played a concert or 2 at night for the passengers while the boat was on the water. But we said, there's got to be more we can do. So what we did every night, we went to happy hour with our guitars, just unplugged, and did requests. We know hundreds and hundreds of songs, including songs from the 30s and 40s that we both learned from our mother. And that tended to be some of the, "Show me the way to go home," and that sort of thing. And people were surprised we knew those, but that was a way to add value. We also taught songwriting on the boat, so that the barge was able to add another class and say, "Hey, if you want to know how people write songs," and we had a good response. People weren't interested in writing songs, but they were curious about how one does this. Also, after we play a concert, we always try to get together with the local people and play gigs, because it's just a lot of fun, and it's the right thing to do. When we were in Scratchers is the name of the club, or the Three Lions, the owner is Graham Firth, who has a band called the True Deceivers, and I have a couple of their albums, and I said, what we need to do is learn one of Graham's songs from his group in County Surrey and sing it for him, and that went great, and it's a cool song. When we were in Moldova, Chadek had been after us. Chadek was the one who wrote the theme song for the festival many years ago, and he's always wanted to have it in English. So they asked us to write it in English and sing it. And when the producer got wind of it, he said, "Hey, could you guys open the festival with the American, the English version of Wszystkie drogi prowadzą do Mrągowa, all roads lead to Mrągowa." And we did that, and Chadek joined us on stage. Chadek joined us on stage and joined us on the English, and then it broke into the Polish verses, and we joined him on the Polish. So that'll endear you to the crowds like nothing else.
We got invited back for next year.
And we got invited back for next year.
Because of that.
Yeah, and that's very rare. So here's the law of non-recurring opportunity, or as I like to call it, the law of the 800-pound prairie dog. So my wife and I were driving around many years ago, and the roadside attractions like the rattlesnake farm and that sort of thing, there's a sign, "Come see the 800-pound prairie dog." And of course we didn't, because but I've always wondered what it was, and I'll never know, because it's long gone. There are times in your life when something happens, and if you don't hit it right then, it won't happen. So if when Malcolm said, "Hey, can you come to London this year?" if we didn't take advantage of that, none of this would have happened. So I think of the 800-pound prairie dog all the time. We wouldn't have got to London like we did. So this is my thesis advisor, Dr. Ken Castor from the University of Cincinnati, and his phrase that he liked to use is "high in so whatness." So on your thesis draft, he would go, "Mr. Taylor, this is high in so whatness." So that might be this talk so far. But what I'd like to try to do is bring it home a little bit. Think of the Smythe and Taylor and Oasis and the folks here. Is there any connection? Is there any utility? So a couple things came to mind just as I thought about it. If perhaps is anybody know the Blue Ocean strategy? It's a very popular consulting kind of book, and the idea is that most companies fight in the space that's the red ocean, which implies blood and sharks and that sort of thing. So it's ExxonMobil on this corner fighting Shell for the last penny. These guys say, hey, if you can figure out a way to get in the blue ocean, it's awesome. One of the big things is Cirque du Soleil. Before Cirque du Soleil, you had the circus, but they invented something completely new. No animals, no stars, they had a story in it, a lot of acrobatics, and if you've been to Las Vegas lately, there must be at least 6 shows that are in permanent theaters for Cirque du Soleil. The other thing, we have some fairly young people here. You might not, so this might sound strange, but when I was growing up and I needed a drink of water, you turned on the hose and you drank it like that. But some point, somebody went to a Coca-Cola executive or PepsiCo and said, hey, I got a great idea. Let's bottle water and we can sell it. And you can imagine what the initial reaction was. Oh my God. And of course now it's a huge thing. That was a blue ocean strategy kind of thing. So what about this group? It's very hard to find a blue ocean example because people have thought about it. But as I thought about Oasis, this is definitely one. So I'll skip over that. But the population of Houston, when I looked it up, 6.6 million for the greater Houston area. Assuming 10% are non-religious, which I think is probably conservative. That's over 500,000 people. There are 100 people in this room. That's an opportunity for growth, as you all very well know. But that should feel like really good. It's like whatever energy we can put into it, we can gather back. Now, what about churches? Are they fair game for Oasis? The trends in religion are Western Europe, where we were just a few weeks ago. Religion is all over in terms of the historic, all those churches, but the people, not so much. And America's an outlier, and even though that's the case, the statistics are the younger people are less religious, and the nuns are growing and all that. But old traditions die hard. There's a lot of dollars in religion, and a lot of people making a lot of money. That tends to keep it. I like to do, as I said, the Barnes and Noble experiment, where I count the sections, the book sections, like this one. And there's last time I checked, there were 24 sections on religion. There were 6 sections on New Age kind of things, where this book came from, The Secret. There's usually 2 sections on philosophy, and at the bottom of the last shelf, and the bottom, down here, are the books on atheism. And it's every Barnes & Noble I've been in, that's the case except for one, where it was on the top. So, it just shows that there's a lot of work to do, but there's a lot of momentum in a positive direction. And next time you're in Barnes & Noble, do what I do. Take one of the Bibles and put it in the Christian fiction section, and just to see if anybody gets that. And the other thing, given that Christopher Hitchens is out in paperback, and I have done this. I have taken a copy and put it next to the Gideon Bible in a hotel as I checked out, just to kind of imagine what it was. I can guarantee if somebody actually picked it up and read it, they are reading a much better written book if they're reading Christopher Hitchens. One of the greatest writers of our time. If you don't know Christopher Hitchens, and not just this book, his other things, I highly recommend it. Now there's reasons that people go to church. So there's community, which I get totally. There's strength in numbers in terms of donations to the community. And there's, as I like to say, getting their ticket punched to heaven. I think that's... Now, so how can this group maybe get into that? Community, you have it all over some of the churches. You offer a house concert and a mini TED talk, as you like to say. That could be very appealing, because now you have 1 million books that people can refer to rather than just one. So I think we were at the Unitarian Universalist Church last night doing a concert, and those folks they could be sitting here right now. They're very, very similar. Strength in numbers. Many people say, hey, the churches are the ones who give all the money, that strength in that. I would point to 2 people, Bill Gates and Warren Buffett, who are not religious, and say that the non-religious can be effective. And this group has proven that it's effective. You've got the Bloodmobile right outside. You do a lot on that. As far as as far as the ticket punch to heaven, you probably can't. You know, if that's why people are there. That probably doesn't work. Strategic planning. I've got just a few minutes left, and let me finish on this one. Without a strategic plan, things can kind of look like this. And an organization has to have some mileage under its belt before it can do strategic planning. You can't do it on the first week, because you want to play things out and see which way it goes. But at some point, the organization grows, and many ideas come in, and if you don't have a strategic plan, it gets a bit complicated. As Covey would say, begin with the end in mind is a good summary of the strategic plan. A strategic plan typically has 4 to 6 strategic goals, and each one has tactics. It has somebody in charge to make sure it happens. It has times. You know, we're going to do this in the next year, and it has metrics. How do you know if it's successful? We're trying to grow our organization by 25% within a year. That's a measurable goal. That's a strategic kind of goal. Now, just thinking about the organization, this group could be welcoming or confrontational. What do we want to be? But clearly, this is a welcoming group. We could be internally focused, or we could focus on ourselves and the community. That decision seems like it's been made. We could be local, focus on this room right here, or we could go across the country. There's a little bit of both in your organization. On the worldwide, we could be reactive. If somebody from Kansas City calls us and expresses interest, we'll meet with them. Or you could be proactive. You could go to every humanist meeting and give a talk and say, hey, we got a great thing going. If you're in a city and would like to do this, give me a call. Maybe we want to be small. Maybe we want to be 100 people, and that's awesome, and we don't want to grow. Maybe you want to rent the next summit like Joel Osteen, and have a huge thing like that. But what's the vision on that? Maybe you want this to be a refuge, kind of a quiet place for people, or maybe you want to have an outreach. You see how if you could answer those questions, it might make it easier. So let me give you an example. So Mike loses his iPhone for a couple days, and when he picks it up, he's got 6 messages on it, and they're this kind of thing. Hey, there's a space available at Richmond. Dawkins is available for $5,000 in October. Do you want to do that? Habitat is interested in a project. There's a guy from Santa Rosa who wants to start a franchise. Channel 5 wants to have somebody from the group talk about the rise of humanism. And the Houston Atheists want to joint sponsor a conference. If you don't have a strategic plan, you're kind of going, how do we do this? So I would suggest if we took this list and just said we want to be welcoming, internally focused, we want to be local, small, and a refuge. That makes Mike's list of 6 pretty easy. Maybe you look at this one, but these other things aren't really relevant to what you're trying to do. On the other hand, if you took this same list, if you took this same list and decided we want to be welcoming, but we want to be countrywide, we want to be large, we want to be outreach, you might say, hey, we need to call Bob Johnson back and get a Santa Rosa franchise going, and we need to call the news because that'll help us get our message out. Does that make sense in terms of how you might do that? I think I will leave that at this. But bottom line, don't stop thinking about tomorrow. And going back to the 800-pound prairie dog and Smythe and Taylor trying to bring it all together. There we go. I would also say, going back to the book, as far as Rhonda Byrne goes, she would say the universe has it all out there for you. It's almost like a living organism, which in some sense I suppose it is, but I would suggest the universe does not care about you. But I would say people care about you, and they care about you a lot. Thanks a lot.